Coming up on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. Great classic cars can be found in the strangest places. For instance,
in a coal mine.
Or maybe in a cave.
You know, a lot of people go, is that the Batmobile? No, it's a T-Bird.
And what happens when you buy an old off-road vehicle, then get creative?
I just call it my Bronco Roadster.
Plus,
Overall, the big construction stuff in the front has been done.
working on the metal in the restoration of the last Hemi. Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte, starts right now. Hi everybody, welcome to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. I'm Jeff Phelps, and on a very hot day, we have come to a very hot show. It is the 15th Good Guys PPG Nationals at the Ohio State Fairgrounds in Columbus, Ohio. Cars from all over North America have come to this one. Sonny, we were walking by and I looked and I thought, wait a minute, that's my dad's truck from when he owned a carpet store. Not the same thing, but he had a Chevy panel truck just like it, so we had to talk to you. I love the panel truck. How long have you had this one?
I've had this one for about 9 years now.
And it looked like what when you picked it up?
Well, same paint. The black I've done that myself. And other than that, it's pretty much the way it was when I bought it. Engine-wise, transmission-wise, all of that's unchanged.
What's under the hood of it, Sonny?
It's got a 350 with a 350 turbo.
What attracted you to this vehicle?
Yeah, I've just always liked them. I seem to be attracted towards trucks, sedan deliveries, and panel trucks. So this one came up for sale, and I ended up buying it.
And you found it where, Sonny?
Actually, I got it out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. So maybe it is your dad's truck.
You know, the thing about it was, when my dad had this truck, it was old at the time, but it was bare. It was sparse. The only thing in it was a driver's seat, and then everything else was just raw metal inside, and of course it was used for work. And that's why I'm surprised that enough of these have survived, because they were truly work vehicles.
Yeah, they were worked hard too. So you're getting to see more of them. When I first bought this, I'd go to a show, probably be the only one there. Now this year I've seen maybe in panel trucks alone, maybe 6 or 7 here. And I've seen a couple of Suburbans, which is basically the same vehicle.
The interesting thing is, nowadays, look at the SUVs that are everywhere, the minivans that are everywhere. They're basically this, but a newer version.
When I first bought this, I did a lot of the Super Chevy shows, and I was in an SUV class with us. Don't understand that, but I was.
It's interesting to me, though, that they've become what they've become. Cool cars that people redo, and there's still plenty of room in it, but it certainly doesn't look like the old one my dad had.
Yeah, I can load this up, easy up tent, my cooler, our clothes that we're going to go, and we can drive to, let's say, Bristol, Tennessee or something like that. And it's just a great drive and plenty of room to do it. Half the time, my wife can climb in the back and take a nap while we're going.
Anything you haven't done to it that you have in the works?
Well, yeah, I will eventually put a different motor in it. I'm probably just going to go with just a crate, 350 crate motor, something that I know a little better and can handle it that way. Where this one, I'm not sure what was done to it or anything. It has been very reliable, but you never know.
Well, Sonny, I always had plans of taking my dad's old beat-up panel truck and doing this with it. So thank you for showing me what it would have looked like had I been able to pull it off.
Oh, you're welcome.
Rick, we can tell it's from the 40s. You can tell it's hot-rodded and looks great. Other than that, we're clueless. Please explain what you have here.
Well, what this is a 1948 English-built Ford. It was naturally built over in England. A lot of them were exported through Australia into the United States. Your local Ford dealerships were selling them as an economy car back in 1948.
So they were sold in the States?
They were sold in the States at all the local Ford, I can't say all the local Fords, but most of your Ford dealers did sell the Anglias.
And it's called an Anglia?
It's called an Anglia, correct.
And did Anglia have a deal with Ford, or did Ford have a deal in England? What was the relationship there?
Well, it was actually at that time, even though it was owned by Ford, British Leyland actually owned Ford in England at the time, from, if my stories are all correct. Because most of your trim pieces and stuff were British Leyland parts. And British Leyland was known for their trim pieces, chrome pieces. Well, at that time, actually, they were stainless steel pieces.
Rick, what's your history with this one?
Well, this one right here I found in 1978 down in Kentucky, Ohio, Kentucky line. Start building it, that was in 1978.
Where was it?
In a coal mine.
In a coal mine.
In a coal mine right in the Ohio, Kentucky line, right below Cincinnati.
So you bought it?
So I bought it, dragged it home, basically dragged it up a hill, put it on a trailer, brought it home, and started building it. And at that time, not putting down any of the great shops we have now, but you had to hand build everything. And a lot of it was trial and error. You hammered it, you beat it, welded it, didn't fit, and you started all over again. And so after many attempts, the car is sitting like this. But for the first 25 years I owned the car, it was in primer. And
25 years in primer.
25 years in primer.
You took your time, Rick.
I took my time. And basically what it was, I wanted to build it like the old style 50s, 60s cars. And back then, a lot of people didn't paint their cars. The cars were kept in primer because that was easier to maintain.
Exactly.
You didn't have to worry about, all the polishing and stuff like that. And one morning I woke up not realizing it was the 25th year. I walked out to the garage and says, it's about time to do something different with the car after 25 years. And I had a different front end on the car, the nose piece, right? If you notice, it's a three-piece nose. Mm-hmm. I had a two-piece original on this. And I wanted to put the three-piece on because it was just a little bit different. So I beat on it, pounded on, straightened all the metal out, put it on the car, fitted it.
It's a 48.
Correct.
But does it resemble any previous Ford or anything like that?
In 1937, the American Ford, if you would look at American Ford compared to this, has the same body lines. Basically, it almost looked the same, except for the American Ford was a lot larger.
So it's a miniature version of a 37 Ford kind of?
Yeah, I'd say about 3/4 scale maybe, something around that effect. And the reason why 1937, and now this is in 1948, during some of the war periods and stuff like that, they had to shut down the plant. War was over, England's economy was starting to build back up again. At that time, Ford did own, English Ford at the time, they told that management, you have like X period of time to get the first cars out or we're going to mothball the plant. Well, the only thing they had on their assembly lines was 1937 Ford Anglias. So the first cars come off the line, and then actually they had a title as a 1948. That's the reason why it has a 30s design even with a 40s title.
Well, Rick, for something you found in a coal mine, it's pretty cool.
Thank you, thank you. And I love cruising in the car.
Looking for some automotive fun? How's this for automotive fun?
I always thought that was a cool car, but I never thought I'd have one.
It's next on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Sally, Tina, Betsy, you've developed quite a bond with your classic car. Let the consignment professionals at RK Motors Charlotte make the selling process as painless as possible. Through precision marketing and large customer base, we all but guarantee a sale at maximum value, and we don't get paid until your car sells. We've sold over 1,500 classic cars here at RK Motors Charlotte, and now we'd like to get to know Betsy, at least for a little while. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. Jeff, you took a perfectly good 1971 Ford Bronco and did this with it. What were you thinking?
Oh, it seemed like a good idea at the time, I think.
What idea was it?
My brother and I went from Minnesota to Texas, one-way tickets. We bought this, we drove it back, and about the Iowa border, heat stroke I think set in, and we said, wouldn't this make a cool two-wheel drive? And that's what we did.
And you at first bought it just to have a 71 Ford Bronco?
We went down looking for something different. We ended up with this. We thought, well, maybe we'll sell it back in Minnesota, pay for our vacation. And once we headed home, we're like, this is kind of too cool to pass up, so we turned it into what you see today.
And what is it? What do you call it?
I just call it my Bronco Roadster.
Your Bronco Roadster.
Yep.
How did you create it?
We basically took the body off the frame, put a Mustang 2 front in it, triangulated 4-link in the back, air righted it, put in a 97 LT1 out of a Firebird, put the body back on, took all the ugliness that we could off the body, smoothed it out, had it painted, and this is what you see.
And there it is.
Yep.
When did this project start? When did it finish?
This thing started about 10 years ago. And we just finished it up this last April. So this is the second show it's been to. And it was kind of an on and off project. When we got tired of working on it, we pushed it to the side and came back to it when we had fresh ideas again.
So life happened in between the process.
Yep. During that time I had, my wife had twins. I started my own business and I moved houses, so this thing got shuttled around between garage and body shop for a while.
Now, along with the look, what does it do, Jeff?
There's lineators in there to move the trunk up and down. It's a full air ride suspension, so I can actually lay the Bronco on the ground, or I can drive at about 4 to 6 inches off the ground. It's got a 97 LT1, so it drives like a brand new car. I have no complaints so far.
What has made you the happiest about this?
I love coming down here and seeing the people's reaction, because if I have two gentlemen walk up and look at it, one will understand what it is and one won't. And they always rib each other to see if they can figure out what it is. So that's the best part of it.
What do you do with it now? Do you have any plans to change anything, add anything, or do anything except drive it and have fun?
No, I'm just going to drive it and have fun, take it to a few more outdoor shows, show it off, and then maybe once the newness is wore off, I'll change it up a little bit so it looks like a new car in a few years.
Well, whatever was kicking around in your brain certainly looks good in reality.
Thank you very much.
Ken, a lot of Ford enthusiasts, a lot of sports car enthusiasts will say Ford ruined the Thunderbird when they went from the little bird to the big bird. I beg to differ. I love the big birds, and this is the third generation of the big birds, the 64 to 66. You have a 64.
Correct.
I absolutely love it. I own one myself. I will admit I'm partial. But this is a real interesting automotive in so many different ways.
Oh yeah, this particular model, this is one of 17 ever built, the car that I have. The color red that it is, along with the, originally it had wire wheels on it, which were recalled by Ford, replaced with the steel wheels and the wheel covers. The tonneau cover, which is covers the rear seat.
You'd never guess there's a back seat under that.
That's correct, yeah. The seat is covered except when I take it off, obviously. And the top works, comes up and covers that, or you can have it with that off and use the top. So it's either way, the top can be used, as a convertible or as a closed car.
It's a real interesting look when you have the cover on the back seat and you have the roof on top.
Yep.
Because people take a look at it and they think, what the heck is this?
Exactly, and when it's down, and the top's down, it looks like the Batmobile. A lot of people go, "Is that the Batmobile?" No, it's it's a T-Bird, and this particular car also has a chrome factory engine, which they didn't sell a whole lot of those.
Now, Ford in the 50s made the Skyliner, the Sunliner, I forget which name it was, but the hard retractable convertible top where the trunk went back and then the top went down inside and the trunk came back down. It's the exact same thing on this except with a soft top.
That's correct. The old Sunliners, like you said, that's what they were called. They actually had a piece on the hard top that folded down to get it to tuck back into the trunk. This does just the opposite. The trunk lid has a piece that folds down and takes the place of that area so that the soft top can go back into the trunk.
Ken, because of the way that the deck works and the top and everything else, there's so much wiring in this car, it's unbelievable. How did you deal with all of that when you picked this up?
Well, when I first got it, this car had been worked on by people that didn't know what they were doing, and they had run a ton of new wiring in. In fact, 250 extra feet of wire had been run into this car, and it was all hot wired straight from the battery. No fuses, no nothing.
Wow.
But the top was underwired. It had too small of a wire on it. It was a fire waiting to happen just because people weren't used to working on a car that has as much electrical and electronics in it as this car did. It's way ahead of its time. Ford back then hit a lot of relays. They had relays stuck in places that you wouldn't expect them. You'd think they'd all be down by the fuse panel or somewhere where they're being used, but Ford tended to stick them in very weird places. So I've learned a lot about where things are on this car as I took it apart, put it back together and everything.
And when you bought it, what did it look like?
Basically, it had the paint job on it, but other than that, mechanically, it was rusted out. The floorboards were shot. The trunk was rusted. The fuel tank was hanging on almost to the ground.
Yikes.
From the floorboards being rotten and everything.
So the one thing that surprised me about this car is how much the tonneau top adds to the value of the car.
Oh yeah, to even buy one of these tonneau covers now, for a factory tonneau cover, they run anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 just for that cover.
And it's just fiberglass, right?
Exactly, fiberglass with vinyl over the top of it, behind each headrest, basically.
Ken, as if the exterior and the trunk and the convertible top aren't cool enough, the interior on the '64 Thunderbird is really interesting.
Yeah, it's supposed to look like a cockpit of an airplane. And that's exactly what it does. It's got gauges that are rounded that stick out and everything, but it's got all the lights. It had the convenience package which added door ajar, low fuel, the flasher. You didn't even have four-way flashers as a standard back then. So it added all those things, and just adds more lights and interest to the dash itself.
The numbers are actually in the dash for the speed of the car, and they illuminate at night?
Yes, the numbers, the light comes through the back of them, and then it has like a barber pole set up for the speedometer that rolls, it turns, and it creates a running red line that advances up to show your speed. And then of course you have the tilt-away steering. Long before the tilt wheels were thought of, this was what they did. They tilted it sideways. It slid out of the road.
In theory, to get in and out of the car
exactly,
more easily.
Made it easier to get in and out of. This was the start of their luxury T-Birds. The 61, the 62, 63 were the big birds, were the luxury T-Birds. They were still sporty supposedly, but they were big and very luxurious. This thing rides like a dream on the road. You don't feel the bumps that today's cars you feel.
Well, it's a cool looking car just to look at it, but then to know everything that goes into it makes it even cooler.
Yeah, I love it. As a kid, I had an HO car on my little HO track that was a 64 T-Bird, just like this, with the tonneau cover in it and everything. And I always loved the shape of that car because it was long and what I call lean. It wasn't very tall. And I always thought that was a cool car, but I never thought I'd have one. And when this became available, I snapped it up. And my wife went along with it. That's the amazing part.
Coming up next,
We pretty much starting to tie up the whole front portion of the car.
it's the restoration of the last Hemi on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.
Handling classic and high-performance vehicles requires an industry-leading team of experts. Welcome to RK Motors Charlotte. Industry-leading means meticulous attention to detail when servicing every vehicle. It means a consignment service so fine-tuned that a successful sale at maximum value is all but guaranteed. And a rigorous inspection on every vehicle before its tires even touch our sales floor. It's all this and more that make RK Motors Charlotte the industry leader. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
From start to finish, it's the restoration of the last Hemi. Mike, you've done a lot of welding work. Where are you with it?
Well, we pretty much starting to tie up the whole front portion of the car. The cowl has now been all patched. All of the underlying rust holes and all the top holes, all gone. The cowl's been reattached back on with all the repairs done underneath it. You know, everywhere where the leaves sat and rotted out, you know, some of the stuff that was not visible to the naked eye until you start removing stuff. That's all been put back on. We've been doing the small patches in the engine compartment. You know, the little spots where you have a pinhole or a spot of pinholes or even a little small rot hole. All those little parts have been patched and starting to be finished back out, metal finished, ground down, you know, to make them undetectable when all is said and done.
There's very little parts left to do. There's little spots that still need done with just little patches. You know, overall, the big construction stuff in the front has been done. All the cowl is completely buttoned up. The kick panels, the footwell areas, all nice and solid and reconstructed now. Started the tear down for the quarter panel in the rear. That's all starting to come back together, so that'll be another one to button up here in the near future.
For more on the restoration of the last Hemi, visit our website at thelasthemi.com.
When it comes to restoring or servicing your classic or high-performance car, expertise is the name of the game. And that's precisely what you'll find at RK Motors. You'll find our expertise in the attention to detail that can only be acquired through years of working on world-class builds. You'll also find our expertise in the RKM Performance Center, where we've assembled a team of highly qualified ASE-certified mechanics. When expertise is the name of the game, trust the experts at RK Motors. Visit rkmotorscharlotte.com.
Now back to the 15th Good Guys PPG Nationals on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte. Jim and Karen, a drive from Indiana to Columbus, Ohio. Absolutely nothing for you guys, huh?
Nothing. That's a normal trip for us.
How long have you guys had this?
Bought it in 2000 and have put about 90,000 miles on it since then, something like that.
Since 2000, you put 90,000 miles on it.
Yeah, we've driven it quite a bit.
You bought it to drive?
Yes, we did.
And where did the car come from?
Our understanding was it came out of Oklahoma, and never been able to get a handle on it down there. Got it in Louisville, Kentucky from a guy. He'd only had it a short period of time. And then since then, we've completely done the powertrain. Karen recovered all the interior and all the interior, seats and everything. And we had that done.
Karen, what kind of a task was that?
Not too bad, just making sure that you don't take it all apart at one time. That way you've got a pattern to go by.
Karen and Jim, I must admit, this may be the only car of this color here all weekend long.
Probably true. It was funny, we went to the shows around our area the first time. Of course, we definitely were the only color there. Now if you go, there are numerous cars this colors and trucks.
And what color is it?
This is peaches and cream. Is the correct name for it, I guess. We just call it peaches, but peaches and cream. And it's a good color for us. Grew up on a peach orchard, so it fits really well. You know, it fits good.
So I don't know if you were looking for a peach-colored car, but as long as you found one, it's a perfect fit.
It's a perfect fit for us, yeah.
What is it about the 48 Plymouth that you guys like so much?
It's big, it's got a good trunk.
Yep, good size.
It rides smooth.
Yep. It's got a 75 Dodge front end under it, torsion bar. So we got a really good ride, much better than most street rods. And it just makes a really good ride. Vintage air, of course, real cold. That stuff's great. It's real cold.
Well, 90,000 miles in the 12 years you've owned it, impressive. Keep up the good driving.
Thank you, we will, no problem.
If you're looking to see some of the finest, most creative vehicles anywhere, anytime, go to a Good Guys event. Anywhere in the entire country for that matter. You will not be disappointed. We certainly weren't today right here at the Ohio State Fairgrounds. I'm Jeff Phelps. We'll see you next time on Cruise In, presented by RK Motors Charlotte.